become so rigid that you say, I pursued this course, this is what I'm going to do. You find that, that's also a challenge, and it is a challenge that so many HR have. And again, we have so many HR people, they may not be practicing because they are in other jobs, but if there is that now opportunity for even on board having HR who are able to train or to change the minds of people. For example, you went to school and did this. It is not a must that you have to. Very few people actually work for what they went to do in the education, because education is basically about enlightening people, opening you up so that you can do more, so that you can do ABCD, you can do so many things. So what I can encourage the people who are educated, especially the people who have at least a Form 4 certificate, do not become choosy with work or jobs. Maybe your talent is not necessarily maybe on a certain field of which you studied, maybe in college. Maybe your talent is somewhere else. So what I can encourage young people, because we have so many of them, most of them very educated, if you are given an opportunity, serve. And also the HR, it's high time we come and motivate employees, because you find that also the HR sector, you find they have also failed somehow becoming so disciplinarians. You find that a HR, as opposed to motivating staff and also training them on how they can be more productive, they are so involved in becoming like a punishment. They are very punitive, mishandling. The morale of the staff is eroded, which is very bad. So, but these are things that also come with corruption, because, for example, you are a HR manager, that job you did not get it through merit. You find that person is just mechanical, and eventually the production of the whole, let's say, a company is not there. And another thing that I can encourage the government when dealing with companies are also should be like assistants to the government, because you find the government also relies on let's say companies, because the government can't employ everybody. They can employ just a few. They also need to have forums with employers, so that they can also encourage them how to handle labor. Yeah, right. And also to incorporate the HR, which is a very important department in any company. And that is also is done by the government. For sure, there will be more productivity.
Right.
Yeah.
The government has been focusing more on the technical side of things and encouraging TVETs, you know, pumping money into TVETs, encouraging people to enroll into TVETs. This sector, the construction sector, uses a lot of technical skills.
Sure.
What do you think this investment that the government is doing right now will do for the sector in maybe even a few years' time?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. For example, we were talking of importing machines as opposed to taking our raw product and bringing them back here. And those people who will be trained are those people who have at least a basic certificate of KCSE and at least an extra course. And for example, if you are interested in machine operations, operating such machines that we are encouraging, you also need to have at least a certain skill. And that skill can be acquired very easily in TVET. So it is the right direction to take people after they have left Form 4, because you find also a majority of our young people, once they leave Form 4, they do not have an opportunity to continue with the education. But it's very important and it's very good to have at least an extra course. You have computers, you have a driving, and maybe an extra course of let's say a mechanic and such, and that is what TVET is doing. What I can encourage such TVETs is now again not only to focus on the technical, not making the people technical, but also making the people wholesome. Let them have maybe a subject or a department that is looking on people's well-being of the mind, making those people not only mechanical, but also people who are reasoning and understanding why they are doing what they are doing. For example, you can have somebody who is who is a mechanic and is making a car. that person, as much as they are doing a mechanical work, that person you can make them become even more productive by training them, let's say, financial literacy. This thing that you are doing, you are working very hard, but you also need to plan for your future, because you will not be young forever. You will continue to grow old. So as you continue even increasing your expertise, it is also important you also plan yourself. You start a family, you do. So we do not have like people who are operating like robots. You have people who have gone to TVETs, but they are actually even more dangerous than useful, because they have a lot of energy, they have a lot of skills, but their mentor and there's that soft spot of making somebody a human. You know, you can be a person but not a human. You are very mechanical. You are designed to operate in a certain way, and you find other people have been made in such a way. But if you now put that soft skill of encouraging people's financial literacy, things to do with the family, the importance of a family, the importance of relating with people, how to coexist with other people very well, how to network, how to socialize, that these schools should not only teach things that we used to, and we have seen we have changed our curriculum. We want people to be more human than operating in a certain way like a machine.
Right.
Yeah.
So the government, I mean, you are a player in the industry. What would you like, or what would you petition the government to do to support the private sector more?
Sure. Yeah, what we can petition the government to do is, first of all, we people who are doing the affordable housing as private developers, we first of all, we need to hold hands with the government. The government needs to support private developers, because what we are doing is one of the agendas. And we have seen it has worked very well for hospitals, private hospitals, for private schools. It has worked very well. A private school, you will see it is given, it is just like a normal government school. It has all the support. If it is the education, everything, they are catered for. So we hold the hands for the private developers. And one thing that I can encourage is for the manufacturing of those affordable materials, and those are precast slabs and stones and all those things, cabros and what have you, so that they can be able to manufacture themselves, and by so doing they'll be able to bring down the cost of construction. There also needs to be a certain standard, so that the private developers, they do not say they are affordable, but they are in business exploiting people. Once they have made a certain, they have stabilized, you find like the cost of the price of houses shoots. Like a company that was selling a house at 4 million automatically now goes to 8 million, 10 million. You find there is people, maybe somebody who was planning to get a house in 10 years, then you find in that 10 years the houses that they could have, despite the inflation, at least there is that the price a price cap for when you are talking of affordable. Then we have those that are known for doing affordable. They are supported. For example, those machinery, they are given and they are taught. They have the people who are coming from TVET trained, and they are employed by that company. Then
right. As we come to a close of this conversation, George, what is your outlook for the future, and what do you look for the construction sector to achieve in especially achieving that affordable housing goal the government has?
Sure. Thank you very much. The future is bright, and this is because I think the government is now speaking what we have been speaking as private developers, and that is taking affordable housing very seriously, because it has a ripple effect on all the other sectors, including agriculture, including security, including healthcare, including job creation. Yeah, and what I can encourage the government, let's hold hands with private developers, so that even the issue of land, we can give land to where we need those houses done. We give, let's play hand in hand with the government, because at the end of the day, we are working to make the lives of Kenyans better, to create a better economy for our country. So if we do it now consciously, we do not guesswork or leave everybody doing their own thing. We have certain frameworks. For sure the future is bright, but if we just leave it to they are just agendas in the manifestos, and there are no policies and there is no following up, for sure we may just be doing not much. But if we take it a notch higher, we come with frameworks, we hold hands with the private developers, for sure we know, we as Mizizi Africa Homes Limited, we can be taken as a pilot. We have done it, and there are a good number of people who are enjoying the fruits. And again, this is not something that can be left to the government. The government is looking up to the people. So if the government supports us, as we also work to what the people want, for sure, the future is bright.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, George, for your sentiments and sharing that knowledge with us.
Thank you. Pleasure.
That is George Mburu. He is the Chief Executive Officer at Mizizi Africa Homes. We have been talking about matters affordable housing and how the government is supposed, or rather what the government should do to achieve the 250,000 units vision annually. That is quite an ambitious vision, and we hope that that is doable. Thank you very much, George, for that. We now want to take you to Naivasha, where the Senator's induction is ongoing, the third day of the Senator's induction. Uasin Gishu County Senator Jackson Mandago is speaking. Let's just listen into that.
Trucks delivering goods and so forth because of the pressure to meet the requirement of own source revenue. So I think counties are doing as much as they can. And as you are aware, most counties have tried to automate the process of revenue collection, again to seal the leakages and the loopholes for revenue losses, and there has been a tremendous improvement. On issues of remittances of funds and counties holding funds in CRF account, I don't remember in my last 10 years as a governor, anytime Treasury made their obligation of following the schedule approved by Senate to remit the funds to counties. And I will tell you shortly how that is also linked to the issues of pending bills. Two, honorable senators, one of the things you should also know is that this CRF account Treasury keep talking about is an account in Central Bank which the Cabinet Secretary cannot tell me has no access because he has been using the funds in those accounts to stabilize his cash flow management at Treasury. So if you say the funds are lying in Central Bank and Central Bank is under National Treasury, and you are saying you are not able to fund other sectors because the money is lying in Central Bank, that is not, I think, the correct position. And we must also note that part of the issue of spending and creation of pending bills is what we were discussing yesterday, and we need a greater engagement with the controller of budget and National Treasury when it comes to releases. So, funds to counties have never been remitted on schedule. And you remember, honorable senators, that there has been a slight change, maybe for the last 2 years I have not seen. Treasury was always quick. On the 1st of July or 2nd, they would publish a whole page of funds disbursed to counties and funds outstanding in the CRF accounts. But what they don't tell you is sometimes they send 3 billion to Uasin Gishu on the night of 30th June. The procurement cycle, if you consider the procurement cycle for you to utilize that money, is you need to advertise and you have to wait for 14 days. You close the tender and the law says you allow 7 to 14 days for evaluation. If you are very efficient, take 7 days plus 14. That takes you to 21 days. And once you evaluate and award, you have to wait again for 14 days in case there is an appeal. That is already over 1 month. And you've received the money on the 30th of June. The question, Bwana Cabinet Secretary, is where is this money that always arrives at the end of the financial year? And what happens? You are not able to pay for your suppliers and for the goods and services you have consumed. But we are also aware that there are counties that overstate their own source revenue, and that has resulted in now pending bills that you cannot understand how they are going to be paid. By the time pending bills reach 4, 5, 6 billion, there is actually a serious problem. And if you trace that problem very well, it is as a result of overstating their own source revenue. But why do counties overstate own source revenue? Because of the ratios we are supposed to comply with in terms of recurrent expenditure and capital expenditure. And there is an argument I've always argued, and I think, Senate, we shall need to have this discussion. And that is why yesterday, when I had a chance, I said, first, let us divorce the funds to county assemblies away from the executive. In my county, for example, our recurrent expenditure was about 3 billion. But 836 million is actually money going to county assemblies, which as a governor, I have no control. I don't account for it, but it becomes part and parcel of my recurrent expenditure. If we are to remove the funds of county assemblies and send that money directly, then even the issue of ratios and the pressure to comply with the ratios, then counties will have less pressure on those ratios. Two, the issue of wage bill. It is true that some counties have employed in excess, but it is also true that there are counties that inherited a lot of staff from the functions that were devolved. And these counties, we can map them out as those former major municipalities in this country and those major towns in this country. And I can tell you a place like Nairobi, every civil servant then wanted to be in Nairobi. If they don't get a chance in Nairobi, they want to be around Nairobi, Kiambu, Kajiado, Machakos. If not, they want to be in Nyeri, or Kiambu, or Nakuru, or Kisumu, or Mombasa, or Eldoret. So you'd find there are some counties and inherited staff, and you know, declaring human resource redundant in this country is a serious political problem. And being politicians, governors also being politicians, you cannot easily want to get your own rope and hang yourself. So you'll have to find some ways of managing. Now, what happens when there are delays in remittances and creation of pending bills? That is how actually we kill enterprises in this country. And it is so sad that so many businesses have gone down, not because really counties or even national government agencies wants to make them go down, but when the funds are not remitted on time. Part of the things that cause delay is what we were discussing with the control of budget. And you heard very well the chair of COG saying, I think there is need for greater definitions of the function of the control of budget and those of the Auditor General, so that there are no duplication. Because you make a requisition, and I'm talking from experience, you know I'm a second-term governor was leaving office. It could have been in my best interest to sort and pay all the suppliers, so that when the funds will be accounted and there will be queries, I can fully take responsibility, you know, when I've asked. But what normally happens when there are transitions? There is a tendency for the new administration not to pay any supplier, not to pay anything, because of wanting to do due diligence, wanting to do that. And in the process, we end up killing those enterprises. When there are delays from approvals from control of budget, it also creates pending bills. And sometimes from where we sit in counties, we don't understand why the controller would be asking for so many documents, considering the fact that when we do a budget, before the budget is uploaded, the controller of budget must approve that budget. When we do procurement, before we do procurement, we provide an annual procurement plan which sits at the controller of budget. We also have a county controller of budget coordinator who looks at all the requisitions before they are requisitioned. When we have done the procurement, work is ongoing. We are in the 4th certificate, and you are asking for the letter of award. You are asking for, you know, the certificate that has been approved by the Public Works and so forth. And this is an ongoing project it makes it very difficult. Two, the blanket rejection of a whole requisition. If you make a requisition of 300 million of several items, when the controller of budget finds one item and is asking for documents, they reject the whole requisition, creating delay in even those that are problem. This is what is leading to these pending bills. And we have, as counties, we've tried our best, we've been trying our best, and I can speak for my county, that we've tried our best to make sure that we have no pending bills, but some pending bills, sometimes we have to verify. And I'm happy the CS is here. There is a very notorious company in this country called Kenya Power and Lighting Company. And I don't know what interest Cabinet Secretary has. It is the only pending bills Treasury follows with a lot of keenness, and so many letters threatening governors of stoppage of transfer of funds, while we have so many small businesses who we should be keen in terms of developing. And I say notorious because I think counties had become cash cows for KPLC, and they are free to take me to court if they so wish. I have evidence. In my county, they could give me a bill of 33 million. When I ask my people to check all the bills of all facilities and all street lights, and we sit with their staff at the county, we arrive at a figure of 14 million.
1 minute.
When we pay 14 million, they still insist on the balance. So I think also part of this pending bill sometimes, because of verification, they take time. Now, finally, on this issue of stoppage of funds to counties, the Cabinet Secretary is empowered, but I think in the wisdom of the lawmakers, they decided that Parliament and Senate must approve, and I fully agree with that article. And nothing actually should stop. If the Cabinet Secretary and Parliament and Senate agrees that there is a serious issue, nothing stops the Cabinet Secretary then from going ahead and stopping the release of funds to those counties. But the law is very clear. It can only be for 60 days, and remedial action must have been taken. But I don't think in my 10 years of devolution, we have witnessed anything so drastic that would have required stoppage of funds to counties. So I think overall, what we need to improve is on remittances to the county, and it should be on schedule. 2, we have to relook into this approval from control of budget so that it's a little bit fast. And 3, we must look at the trends in terms of revenue collection of counties so that counties don't overstate on-source revenue in a quest to meet those budget requirements. Finally, I have always had an argument on this recurrent expenditure, and I would want the Senate on their own time to have a serious discussion. What constitutes recurrent expenditure? There are some essential things that are in recurrent expenditure because of accounting process, and that is why my friend here, Ledama, is saying we might have to look into the accounting process. Drugs, for example, is a recurrent expenditure. You cannot afford not to have drugs in the facilities. And it is a recurrent expenditure, but you can look at it as a recurrent expenditure for development. Human resource training is a recurrent expenditure, particularly a critical expenditure. We have programs that counties are running, like internship programs. It's a recurrent expenditure, but it's a program you would want to use to mentor the young people so that they're able to make a contribution to this country. So there are so many recurrent expenditures, which in my view, we might need to classify recurrent expenditures into 2. Recurrent expenditure that go towards development, and then the normal recurrent expenditure of travel, salaries, tea in the office, airtime, per diem, all these others that we normally want to pay attention to, so that we are able to pay attention to that. But we must also have a debate on the accounting system we are using as government, so that we can have a true reflection of how we are spending our money. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's appreciate Senator Mandago again. I like the way he's candid, and I think this is what is going to help us be able to make some progress. The next discussant is a man who sits in one of the most powerful offices in Parliament. This is the Parliamentary Budget Office. Senator Mtula Kilonzo would tell us that if you want your bill to pass, you need to be able to go and sit down with either Dr. Masinde or the former director. I think her name was Phyllis. And we've noted that in the Senate, we have a lot of legislations which are still collecting dust in the National Assembly. In fact, most of those legislation will have to be republished again. I dare say that the majority leader in the National Assembly always just put them down under his desk. And these are some of the legislation that the CS was talking about. I'd like to invite Dr. Masinde to take us through three very, very important things that the CS reiterated on in his presentation. One is on the need to be able to develop legislation which will be able to ensure fiduciary responsibility on this issue of financial accountability. And then it will also be very, very important for the senators.
Senator Ledama Olekina there leading the discussions at the Senators' induction. The third day of the induction is happening in Naivasha, and of course we are following up on that, and we shall be bringing you a detailed report in our bulletins at 1, at 7 and at 9 p.m. We now want to have a conversation on matters investing in Africa. Just a little bit of a background. The United Nations Conference on Trade and Development indicated that investment flow to Africa reached a record $83 billion in 2021, which is up from $39 billion in 2020, with the largest holders of foreign assets in Africa being Europe, with UK, United Kingdom, leading at $65 billion and France at $60 billion. Now, the Investing in Africa conference, the 2022 edition, is supposed to take place on October 10th and 11th in London. And we just want to have a conversation with Rupert McCannon. He is the Managing Director of African Investments, and he shall be telling us what that conference is about and also just who will be attending that particular conference. Rupert, thank you very much for joining us, and from London there, thank you for joining us, and just tell us about the conference that is slated for October 2022. What do we expect?
Thank you very much, Betty. So the AFSIC Investing in Africa event was set up about 9 years ago and has developed into perhaps Africa's most important investment event. So it aims to bring together companies that are looking to raise finance for reasonably substantial projects in Africa. So whether they're in the financial services sector, maybe the energy sector, agriculture, in fact, in any sector in Africa, bring them to London to meet many of Africa's largest institutional investors. So those are investors that are managing substantial pots of money on behalf of third parties. Perhaps they're private equity funds, they might be listed equity funds, they could be sovereign wealth funds. Have, for instance, the South African the largest move then to making investment transactions. So the whole event is centered around matching companies that are seeking investment with investors that are looking for investment opportunities, specifically in the African continent.
Right. So which kind of, say, investment opportunities exist for the African people, especially the business people that are looking for investments during such conferences?
Sure. So really, you can divide the investment opportunities onto the continent into those that major investors globally will look at. And those might be the investors in that kind of investment opportunity would tend to be larger investors looking to invest sums of a couple of $100,000 for the smallest funds, all the way up to hundreds of millions of dollars. They're looking for companies that are well established, that have a track record, where there's established management team, where they can have a conversation, they can look at the history of the company and see whether there are any good reasons to invest into that company. They do also invest in startups as well. Those are kind of the investment opportunities that the investors who are attending APSIC are looking at this particular event. But of course, across the continent, in every country in Africa, there are a myriad of investment opportunities focused on the really smaller end of business. So perhaps a mango farmer looking to raise money to expand their acreage, perhaps a solar panel reseller looking to expand their operations wherever they are in Africa. Those kind of investment opportunities are not so well suited to this particular event. However, we've launched a number of digital platforms that we can talk about later, which are really perfect to capture those investment opportunities on and to match business leaders across Africa who are looking to raise money with smaller kind of investors. So yeah, the APSIC Investing in Africa conference is really focused on the major investment opportunities, perhaps investments into Kenya's banks, Kenya's leading agriculture companies, perhaps some of the infrastructure projects, ports and logistics that you have in Kenya, but also across all 54 countries in Africa.
Right. Rupert, this particular conference, this is not the first edition that is happening. Could you just tell us what you have been able to achieve this far?
Yeah, sure. So this is the 9th edition. We were unable to hold the event for a couple of years during COVID for obvious reasons, especially as the main participants in the event are from the African continent, so they were most people were unable to travel during the past year. So what we've done is we have, over the course of 9 years, really established credibility as the major investment event for Africa, to the extent that nowadays what happens is that when we hold the event, a huge number of the investors turn up. We get a whole bunch of what I call deal makers. So these are investment bankers, perhaps stockbroking companies, maybe trading on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, but also in the regional stock exchanges, and also companies, and then the whole investment ecostructure and service support companies. So, for instance, lawyers from Kenya might turn up, accountancy companies. We know that we've got the head of Eastern Africa, but Ernst & Young is turning up as an example. And over the past 8 years, what we found is that bringing together this whole group of people has led to a wealth of investment opportunities being financed. So whether it's a microfinance company raising money, whether it's a energy company being able to connect with a Swiss-based energy investor. So we have all these connections that have been made at the event, which are hopefully leading to new investment decisions being made. And I think we've certainly seen that happen in past editions of APSIC, and it's really evidenced by the support that we now get from, I think we've got sponsorship from 4 of the G5 leading economies in the world. So the American government, the British government, the German, the French, the Dutch, they financially sponsor the event with, I suppose, really evidencing the fact that it was having success at putting together companies in Africa that are looking.
Right. Rupert, so as we now walk into you had the numbers that I spoke about at the start of the conversation. Those are quite some huge numbers, $83 billion coming into Africa just last year. Of course, an uptick from $39 billion in 2020, just to repeat those numbers. What makes Africa so attractive, and even when you look at the economic growth that is happening in Africa, despite all the challenges, there's COVID and many other challenges that Africa faces, what makes Africa attractive?
So in global terms, interestingly, Africa is not perceived as being an enormously attractive place in which to invest by large numbers of the world's population. Now, that's a narrative that is changing. So while we're seeing increasing investment coming into the continent, it's really off a very low base. And there's a huge way to go for Africa to really attract as much investment as it deserves to do so. So yes, we're seeing increases in investment, but they're not coming quick enough. And having said that, I really believe that Africa is on the cusp of very rapid growth. And I think when that rapid growth starts becoming evidenced in numbers, then we're going to see a much greater investor appetite for coming into the continent, for looking at investment opportunities. Because, when you look at the rest of the world has now, to a large extent, emerged from a developing perspective and moved into more developed continent. If we look back 30, 40 years ago, many parts of Asia, including China, for instance, had huge levels of poverty and were relatively poor. And that region of the world has seen great growth over the last 30, 40 years. I'm absolutely convinced that it's now Africa's turn to see that growth, and it will be supported by the young population in Africa. And that's one of the principal drivers and one of the principal reasons why Africa is going to do so well over the next 50 years, is that we have this huge wealth of young population who are going to be digitally literate. They're going to be able to participate in the world economy in a way that their grandparents and parents were unable to, because there was no internet, there was no access to the global economy. And I think this is going to drive Africa's emergence over the course of the next 50 years. I think we can really see quite a lot of exciting economic growth coming, but the investment at the moment is not as high as it should be.
Thank you very much, Rupert. We shall be joining you in just
1 minute
a little
break.
bit. We want to
Do
take
stand by. We shall be coming back to you. We want to take a quick break here on BizCheck. When we come back, this conversation about attracting investments to Africa with Rupert Makanon, the Managing Director of African Investments, continues. Do stay with Channel 1.
Do you have a news story to share with KBC? Get in touch swiftly on email news@kbc.co.ke or call 0723-892-654 or 0734-780-124.
Unajua kwamba Jackie alitekwa nyara na utasiwajua?
Nataka kuyajua haya maneno.
Pili, unasikia nilivyosema?
Mr. Laba, not again. Your daughter needs you, both of you.
Sasa vipi leo utamshabikia Kate wakati mimi ndio mama Kibali?
Mimi sitaki kuteseka kwa makosa ya Badi.
Sitaki kusumbuliwa kuhusu Jackie alipo wala atakapokuwa.
Days will come and days will go. The season change.
Ana rabbukum, na mie ni Mola wenu, fattakuni, mniogope mimi, bimtithali awamiri, ili kwa kutekeleza amri yangu, wajinabi zawajiri, na muepuke yale nimekataa.
Unazo dua ambazo Muislamu anafaa kutekeleza ama kuzisoma wakati ambapo anatekeleza shughuli katika maisha yake. Kuna dua ambazo unafaa kusoma wakati unapoamka, wakati unapoingia msalani, na wakati ambao unaenda kulala, na pia katika shughuli zozote zingine. Na pia biidhnillah taala wafaa kufahamu kuwa kuna dua ambayo Muislamu anafaa kuomba wakati anapotaka kufanya maamuzi, na dua hii yafahamika kama istikhara.
Fi tahiyatil wujud Muhammadun fi ibtihalat.
Aifa la maybe it was in June. What, juju? Is there anything like juju in the first place?
Wewe ujui maybe amelongwa.
Wacha gingora na biga kalele. Na biga nduru. Mama katoka mbio.
Oh, a second ago you were begging for my help and now suddenly I'm useless?
Wenda huko.
Theophilus, I won't allow you to demean other students. But if you push it, you will be staring at your suspension.
I don't buy threats anymore. I have a bigger problem than a college suspension.
Heshima na simama.
We move from glory to glory, from grass to grace. Long live excellence.
Inakisiwa kuwa utandawazi na teknolojia ndiyo chanzo kubwa au chanzo kikuu cha vifo hivi. Je, tutazuiaje teknolojia kumaliza vijana wetu?
Nakumbuka hadi chuo moja alinipiga kaa punda. Huku akidai eti mimi ni kilema. Wasee waliniita danda eti jumi si performer.
Walai nimeogopa mambo ya hawa watu. Anajiita msuba na ana miaka 70.
Something about your body when they eye me like I don't smoke Colorado.
Kiswahili kitukuzwe, kwani lugha ya taifa.
This is KBC Channel 1 and you are watching BizCheck. My name is Betty Kiptum. In studio we are having a conversation with Rupert Makanon, who is joining us via Zoom from London, and we are talking about matters investing in Africa. The Investing in Africa conference is happening in October 2022, and we are just seeking an understanding of exactly what will be happening during that conference and what makes Africa tick. Rupert, thank you for staying with us. You were telling us about what just makes Africa very attractive. Could you please keep going on that?
Yeah, sure. So there's Africa's a relatively untapped economy, I suppose. When you look at it, it comprises 54 different countries, each of which has very different characteristics. So when you look at Morocco, Egypt, Kenya, South Africa, the big economies the continent, they're each very different. Most global businesses don't really understand Africa, and they don't understand the opportunities on the continent. But what we do with Africa very closely is we're seeing the emergence of a really a very digital literate youthful class who are going to be driving forward economic growth within the Africa continent in decades to come. So I think traditionally one of the ways in which countries have got richer is through industrialization. It's through the introduction of manufacturing and a large number of people being employed in manufacturing jobs, whether it's in textiles, or if you look at China, the whole wealth of industrialization and manufacturing that goes on there. Personally, I think that will happen to a large extent in Africa because the wages are relatively low compared to the rest of the world. But I think the big opportunity for Africa is really the ability for companies that are operating in more expensive parts of the world to outsource jobs to Africa. And indeed, I do that myself in my own companies. I'm in Djibouti, Ethiopia, Botswana, South Africa, and other parts of the continent as well. The reason for that is that the staff are incredibly adaptable, they're digitally literate, but also they're relatively less expensive than the rest of the world. And I think that kind of process, now that we've come through COVID and we've understood that remote working is something that does work in a work environment, I think we're going to see a lot of jobs migrate to Africa, and I think that will generate huge economic growth on the continent in decades to come.
I like that you've mentioned the labor market that exists in Africa, because Africa has quite a young workforce that is very much educated, but the economies as they are do not generate enough jobs for them. So I like that you've mentioned that. And is this something that the investors will be looking at during the conference?
It's one of the key considerations that an investor will look at, and it's one of the reasons why Africa is going to outperform the rest of the world economically, in my opinion, over the next 50 years, is because when you look at countries like China, when you look at Japan, Germany, much of the developed world, what you're starting to see is the population is aging very quickly. So the number of young people that have been born is reducing each year as the growth rate of as people have fewer kids, in fact. And what that means is that the tax burden in richer countries is likely to go up, the ability to recruit is likely to decrease, and so the labour market's getting tighter. In fact, we're seeing that with inflation in many of the developed world economies at the moment, with lack of labour. So what is going to happen, undoubtedly, in my opinion, is that a lot of those jobs are going to shift to Africa. The jobs are done on the internet. People in Kenya will be working for companies based in Japan, maybe in America, maybe in Europe, and doing jobs for those companies. They'll be bringing in income into the Kenyan economy that up until the invention of the internet, and really until remote working, just that income was not there. So it's a huge new potential source of income for countries like Kenya. And I think it will drive economic growth in Kenya forward over coming decades. And of course, when people are working remotely for companies, they're learning how those companies operate. And then they can start those same companies in Kenya themselves and become world beaters. And of course, that's what we've seen with countries like China, where they have operated maybe on an outsourced basis for companies that are based in America and Europe, and they've undertaken manufacturing processes for those companies. Now they've actually stopped being the manufacturing companies themselves and running the company, and no longer working for an American company that operate on their own. I think that's what's going to happen in countries like Kenya. We'll see the jobs migrate to Kenya, and then the businesses start generating in Kenya and grow to the rest.
Yes, that's great. We hope that actually keeps building and opening up more jobs for both Kenyans and just people living in Kenya, really. Let's talk about the technological advancements that are going on within the continent. I mean, Kenya in itself is quite developed technologically, even when you look at the world map. So is this something that is making Africa and Kenya, to be specific, attractive? I mean, you've seen quite a number of tech startups receiving funding. Last year was quite a boom, and we hope that this year will even be better. So how do you see this playing out?
Yeah, undoubtedly. The tech future in Africa is really exciting. There are tech startups across the continent. Kenya is one of the hubs for tech. And people across the world are scouring the continent, including Kenya, look for the next big thing. We've seen some big tech companies coming out of Kenya. We've seen, obviously, in Pesa, but we've also seen tech companies coming out of Nigeria, elsewhere in the continent as well. I mean, tech is the future for really the workforce in Kenya. And I know traditionally it would have been agriculture, for instance, maybe coffee, maybe tea, when you're looking at exports. Flowers, and in Asia it was manufacturing drove economic growth, but I'm convinced that it's the tech world that will drive Kenya's economy forward for the next 30, 40 years. So that means that getting a population that is tech literate is really important. And of course, Africa, funny enough, because it had very poor telecommunication infrastructure prior to the advent of mobile phones, has actually leapfrogged much of the rest of the world. And I mean, I've been off to parts of the Congo where the telephone system is actually better than in the village that I used to live in the UK. And that's all to do with the fact that Africa is double jumping in some elements the old archaic infrastructure that's established in the more developed world. So yeah, big exciting opportunities in tech, but for the whole population. It's really, I suppose the lesson for Kenya is drive out the internet to all the population, so that the population can benefit from the internet and participate in it, and also create new businesses. Because you can create a new tech business from anywhere in the world. You could be in a rural part of Kenya, you could be in Nairobi. It doesn't matter where you are. You can create that business nowadays from wherever, and that's such an exciting opportunity for Kenya.
Rupert, we are talking about all these opportunities that exist and how Africa is placing itself at a place where it's now time for Africa, so to say. How about the challenges? Are there some challenges or things that are slowing down this progress, especially talk about matters like corruption or prudence of use of resources, and also things such as the stability of the political stability in these countries? Political stability.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of challenges in Africa. The challenges are not unique, and traveling in China, and at that stage, China had lots of challenges. Corruption was still an issue in China, and China's managed to develop very successfully as large problem with corruption and is growing rapidly. But perhaps Africa's biggest is that as a continent, it's an enormous land mass, but it's subdivided into a very large number of countries, each of which is relatively small in global proportions. So, for instance, the entire African continent, which is African countries, is the same size economically as India, which is one country. So as an investor, you have to decide, now, do I want to invest in India where there's one legal system, or do I want to start getting involved in Africa, but I might invest in Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, Ethiopia, but then I'm going to have to learn 4 different legal systems, each of which has its own taxation code, each of which has I have to set up a company in each of those places. So, I think one of the key things that has to happen in an African sense is greater integration of the regional economies. Global investors, when they look at investment, don't have such great complexity of investing and having to set up structures everywhere and learn different legal systems. So Kenya is part of the KBC regional investment area. The KBC team's actually in AFSIC coming to the conference. The head is great, and so I'll spend some time with them looking at ways in which we can trade across Africa. But there are issues, and this complexity of having lots of different countries is important. Corruption's a major issue. If I'm an investor and I have to choose whether to put, as an example, $10 million into a country where corruption is very high, as opposed to putting $10 million into a country where corruption is low, and where I know that my investment will be safe, the laws are not going to be changed, I'll be deciding to go to a more stable environment. And it's investors are looking for stability. They want to know that the laws, when they invest in a country, the laws as they are today will be as they are in 5 years' time, in 10 years. When they put a big infrastructure in place and they spend money there, they aren't faced with uncertain changes in legislation and, perhaps their property rights in a country. And we've seen that in many parts of Africa where governments have unilaterally decided that it's not right that foreign investors have this percentage of a business sector, and so the government will unilaterally say, well, company. Foreign investors will not go back to that for a long time. Targets, which you're all aware of in Kenya, to do with
Rupert, let me just cut you short a little bit. We've lost connection there for a minute, for a few seconds. We shall be getting back to you. Let's just sort that a little bit. We just want to take the viewer to Mombasa, where the Council of Governors is having a meeting there. Let's listen into that.
Saying it within the first 100 days. I want to remind everyone today, I think it's my 4th day in office, but in terms of after being sworn in, we're on day 7. So within the first 100 days, we will be issuing out an expression of interest that is going to look at all aspects. One is from source all the way up to recycling. I get a lot of calls, and I've actually been very specific. I would prefer that we follow the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act. I don't want people to individually come to the governor's office and start doing presentations, whereas we can be able to get many companies that can be able to do those particular presentations, due diligence done in the right manner, so that we do not start engaging people who it ends up being a false start. So yes, long-term solutions are already being looked into. But we cannot start saying that because a long-term solution is the only way, then we stop and we just continue. I have personally tasked the Deputy Governor, and we have already done whatever needs to be done to ensure that that backlog of garbage that is there, and one of the other things that we're also going to be doing is the Mombasa Inspectorate Bill. While we have the Mombasa Revenue Service, which will have an enforcement unit for purposes of revenue alone, we want the Inspectorate Bill to have arresting powers for those who are going to be seen that they're purposely throwing garbage all over. We will make life easy. We have even said that for those people who are commercial companies that are in the business of collecting garbage, we have gone ahead and said that in the next finance bill, we're waiving off any fees that will be paid at the dump site. We're saying that we're going to remove any illegal dump sites within Mombasa. That means we'll only have transfer points. Someone comes at a certain time, that notice will be available to the public, where they're just mapping out Mombasa and bearing in mind the number of vehicles that the Environment Department has. We are right now already working with partners, and they're reviving the other vehicles that are currently grounded, so that we can be able to have much more on that. And I think you asked that question was about. Yes, there's a Mombasa County Roads Act as well. You will also be able to be in agreement with me that some of these roads are Kura roads. That means it is the Kenya Urban Roads Authority. But there's nothing that stops the county government from engaging these other state corporations that are in charge of doing these roads. And a perfect example is the road of Makerunge, which is a 2 billion shilling contract that joins Mombasa and Kilifi County. And coincidentally, it is the same road that now passes all the way from Shomoroni, Kiembeni, all the way up to Makerunge, and further on it goes all the way to Kilifi County. And that is the passageway to go to Makerunge dump site. So we've already started engaging them. They've given us an assurance. I personally went on the ground and I saw that the contractor is currently on ground. We've only requested the contractor that they have 2 lots working simultaneously. One lot from the side of Kilifi coming towards Mombasa, and the other lot coming from Mombasa going towards Kilifi. It's I'm told that they're going to be doing it into 11 lots in total, and I think each lot is at about 3 kilometers. So that means
Sharif, Mombasa Governor Abdul Samad Sharif, they're speaking about just what he is going to do to ensure that Mombasa County moves forward in terms of environmental conservation. He's talked about the illegal dumping and how he's going to clamp down on it and much more issues. We shall be filing that report a little bit later. We want to come back to the studio here, where we are having a conversation with Rupert Makanon. He is the Managing Director of African Investments. Rupert, sorry, we had lost you a little bit there. It's good to have you back. You were talking about the challenges that investments in Africa, or just investing in Africa in itself, is facing. please.
Yeah, so I think, it's the biggest challenge is the fact that the continent is split into 54 different countries, and so each has their own legislation and jurisdiction, and it's complex when you're operating across Africa because of the different jurisdictions. Corruption's an issue. Stability of law is an issue. If you're investing somewhere, you want the law today to be the same as it is in 10 years' time, so you know what your investment needs to make and what returns you're going to make. But in general, these are not challenges that are insurmountable. I think there are, in many areas, progression has been made to reduce the challenges. They're still substantial, but the opportunities are really there right in front of Kenyans, and certainly on the digital side, the ability to now plug into the world economy, to become part of global companies and to be recruited and then to set up tech companies in Kenya. That opportunity is like never before. It's a really exciting one, and one that I know many Kenyans are already taking, but I think many more will take over the next 10 years.
Right, Rupert, so the conference is a few weeks away. What would you say to maybe businesses who are looking to attend such a conference? What would you say to them? How can they reach you? And also, what tools are you using to make it more accessible for business owners?
No, thank you, Betty. That's very kind. So, yeah, the conference is in 2 weeks' time, in just over 2 weeks' time. It's pretty tight for Kenyan companies wanting to come, but our website is afsic.net. You can book online there to attend. Now, we also have a range of free platforms which are designed specifically for Kenyan and other African businesses to promote themselves on. It's all free. So if you go to that same website, you can find those platforms there. They're really exciting. We've just won a major award from one of America's top tech companies. What those platforms do is try to match business, investment and trade opportunities in and across Africa. They're equally useful for the smallest trader in Kenya all the way up to the big companies. We're looking at introducing things like artificial intelligence to make them better, but they're free to use. And you'll get more details on our website. And I know, Betty, KBC and APSIC, we've got a close relationship. We're hoping to grow business into Kenya together, and looking forward to maintaining the dialogue with Kenyan companies and looking to assist Kenyan businesses and individuals.
That is quite a good way to put it there. You're looking to grow Kenyan businesses. I mean, Kenyans are just going into business every other day. I mean, it's interesting that more women are going into entrepreneurship than men, but the funding is largely going to the men, who are fewer in the field. What would you say about that, Rupert?
Well, I think there are big efforts across the world, really, to ensure gender equality and to try and ensure that everybody, regardless of gender, but also race and color, gets an equal opportunity in today's world. And I know that within our APSIC event, we have a number of sessions specifically dedicated to promoting female-led businesses and female-led investment funds, and it's really exciting because you're empowering half of the world's population now in a way that historically has never really been achieved. And so just by doing that, you're unlocking so much talent and so much exciting new opportunity, and that in itself will create new jobs. And it's very exciting, but of course a long way to go as well. And we mustn't forget men as well, because lots of men out there with great opportunities, but it really is a matter of making sure that everyone's treated equally and that's as it should be.
Awesome. So Rupert, as we come to a close of the conversation, what would be your closing remarks and what are you looking forward to in the next few weeks?
Well, I mean, I think we're looking forward to a really exciting APSIC event. It's there. We're looking to match some of the big investment opportunities in Kenya with investors. But if you can't attend, get onto our website, make sure you register onto our digital platform, absolutely free of charge, and we're going to try and help you grow your business in Kenya and do it for free, and see if we can match you with business opportunities and partners and investors across the world. So thank you for the opportunity, Betty.
Thank you, Rupert, and thank you for speaking with us. See you in London.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
That is Rupert Mukanon. He is the Managing Director at African Investments, and we have been talking about investing in Africa, how investors are looking into Africa, what makes Africa tick, and just some of the challenges that Africa is facing as an investment destination. That particular conference takes place on October 10th and 11th in London, and we shall be bringing you the proceedings of that particular event. That's it for BizCheck this particular morning. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing. Kurunzi Mashinani is coming up, and later on Tambrini. My name is Betty Kiptum. Do have yourself a lovely day. Bye-bye.
If you are a holder of any unclaimed financial assets, surrender all unclaimed financial assets in your possession to the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, UFAA, today without having to pay interest or penalties. Take advantage of the Finance Act 2022 moratorium on penalties and interests. For more information, visit www.ufaa.go.ke/holders. Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. Receive, safeguard, reunite.
Days will come and days will go. The season change.
Ana rabbukum, na mie ni Mola wenu. Fattakuni, mniogope mimi, bimtithali awamiri, ili kwa kutekeleza amri yangu, wajinabi zawajiri, na muepuke yale nimekataa.
Kunazo dua ambazo Muislamu anafaa kutekeleza ama kuzisoma wakati ambapo anatekeleza shughuli katika maisha yake. Kuna dua ambazo unafaa kusoma wakati